What actually happened was I was swimming and I came out of the water. My friend ran down the beach and he was very, very excited. And he said, "Guess what?" I said, "Don't know." He said, "Americans are coming." So I said, "Really?" He said, "Yes, they're coming in tonight from Bude Station. We'll go up and see them." So we all went up to Bellevue, which is the main street. And these chaps marched up and they were all very cheery. And one of them picked a daffodil out of the side of the hedge and he stuck it down the barrel of his rifle. And I was standing next to quite a well-known character in Bude, or around Bude. He was a farmer. And he turned to me and he said, "You know," he said, "I don't think we're going to win much with this lot," he said, "if they do things like that." So they were always our first view of Americans. And my friend turned to me and he said a very strange thing. He said, "They speak English. Do you know that?" And I said, "Yes, well, that's what the thing is." And he said, "But they're gangsters, really, aren't they?" It was very unusual because they had nowhere to go. There was no camp, no barracks. And in fact, a driver from a GI was sent down from London to find accommodation for them. And he went to the local police station and he said, "Well, we'll put 2 rangers with all the families we can find." And that's how it happened. And it's probably historically one of the few times where the military have actually lived with civilians, which, if you look at it, was a very dangerous thing because they were trying to be disciplined. They had to be on parade each time, but living in private houses, they might not have woken up on time and they were scattered all over Bude and they had to get on parade, certainly by 8 o'clock, and half of them were missing and being rounded up all the time. So the whole thing became a family orientated, and that's why the people of Bude were so close to the Rangers, because they knew about them, you know, all their family, they had all the photographs and everything. And at the end of the working day, which was pretty hard, they'd be doing speed marches and everything, they'd go home and they'd sit with the family, and there was no television, so they usually played cards or something. And the whole of all the Rangers got to know the whole of Bude, and that's why they were so attached to them. I followed them, much to the annoyance of my headmaster, where I was at the school at St Petrock's, and he said, "You spend far too much time watching these chaps." And I had to admit, you know, that was the problem, and my work suffered. But as a result, I was all over the place watching them, and I contracted double pneumonia, and it was quite serious. My father, who was a major in the British Army, was called home, and when he got here, he found that my mother and I lived in apartments in Downs View, number 24, and each side of us were Rangers, and they stretched all the way down to Crooklets Beach, making a tremendous noise. And my father was very upset about this, and he said, "I'll have to speak to the commanding officer." So he went to see Colonel Rudder, and he said, "I know we're on the same side, but," he said, "this is ridiculous, you know, all the noise your chaps make." And Rudder turned to him. He said, first of all, he said, "What's the problem?" And my father said, "Well, my son is dying, and he's not expected to live after, you know, this week." And he said, what's the matter with him?" And he said, "He's got double pneumonia." And Rudder turned to him and he said 7 words, and he said, "Major, don't worry about a thing. We've got the stuff." That's what he said, the stuff. He never referred to it. And he appointed the chief medical officer, who was Dr. Block, to get this medicine, and it was called sulfathesiol. It was the pre-runner to penicillin, made by a company called May and Baker. They gave it to me, and I'm still here today. Every British soldier thinks his regiment is the best. It's the same in any military hierarchy. And the Americans were always sort of, "Oh, they can't march and they wear rubber-soled boots." But in fact, they were very, very highly trained troops, trained, in fact, by our commandos. And the British commandos were very cynical about them and said, oh, well, I don't know. But in fact, they thought so much of them, they presented them with a Ranger knife, and it's called a Fairbairn, a Major Fairbairn designed it. It's quite long and pointed, and every boy in Bude wanted one. So it was, you know, swapping pocket money for a Fairbairn knife. I lost mine in the end. I wish I'd never given it away.